Magandang araw sa Pista ng Mapa. This is Maning Sambale and I am with Erwin Olario. We are one of the OSM Philippines volunteers and we are here to talk about OSMaPaaralan. This is an ongoing project by the OpenStreetMap Philippines to map all the public schools in the Philippines in OpenStreetMap. So we'll start off with Erwin who will introduce the project.
So why are we mapping schools in OpenStreetMap? There are several factors that we want to highlight. Schools are de facto community centers and are landmarks for settlements. Apart from being important places for learning, schools are also used as temporary shelters during emergencies and an important part of the democratic process in the country as polling precincts during elections. Back in 2013, the Department of Education provided the local OpenStreetMap community with a database of 46,000 schools, 62% of which had geographic coordinates. We were reviewing that database for quite a while, but we didn't get to act on it until 2016 when they revised the database and it was released in the opendata.gov.ph portal back then. And at that time, 41,100 schools were part of the final records, and 96% had geographic coordinates that are usable for us. So this was the starting point of the DepEd School Database initiative, or our initiative to map the schools of DepEd. There are quality issues involved in while we were looking at the database, even before we started the project taskings. So here are some photos that highlights some of them. There were a number of schools that share the same geographic coordinate. We didn't have to go into the details of why that happened, but definitely these were not usable for our mapping project. So these schools were removed out of that database. There are a lot of cases where the school locations, the geographic coordinates from DepEd, are located in locations not outside or no, are inaccurate based on the database. Some of the schools were located in the water or sometimes in forest areas, which are very unlikely. And then there are some schools that whose location are closer to the actual school, and the aerial or satellite imagery that is being reviewed by OpenStreetMappers are helpful in validating these locations. Apart from geographic coordinate issues, we also have to clean up the attributes found in the database, fixing typographical errors, extracting information for place names for barangays and sitios in the database, spelling out abbreviations. There are also instances where there are geographic coordinates, but they are incorrect. And of course, we have to deal with outdated data. Adding the schools in OpenStreetMap is basically following these processes. The volunteer will copy the clean depth attributes as tags from the Maproulette tasking manager that we use. And then the location is validated using satellite imagery or based on local knowledge. And then the contributor draws the outline of the school ground and the geometries of the building. The tasking is available from Maproulette through this link or the shortcut available on this screen. How does that look like? So when you go to Maproulette, it will show you all of the schools we have in our database. The numbers you see by default are the areas where there are still tasks remaining to be mapped. So it's possible to search for your neighborhood or your hometown by name or by geographic coordinates. So next we'll see how mapping is done. So this is Maproulette. The user highlights the tags extracted from the DepEd database and converted to tags that are usable in OpenStreetMap. Here, the editor is using the rapid editor based on ID. After tracing the outline of the school, clicking on the school grounds, instead of typing in all those tags, they can simply paste those tags and it's added to OSM. And then you click save and upload it, and that's it. They've added a school in OpenStreetMap. Of course, that's the basic. Since we're not urgently trying to complete all the schools, we encourage people to map other elements in the area. The school buildings, of course, trying to identify the gymnasiums if they have one, because usually that's where people are temporarily sheltered. Highway crossings are important because some of the data from OpenStreetMap are used by navigation devices, and to help improve safety, they can warn drivers about highway crossings that are coming ahead of them, and of course, improving other elements like roads and buildings in the area. There are people who map also flagpoles and whatever identifiable feature you can find in your imagery. So next is Maning, who talk about the status of the project.
Thank you, Erwin. I started this project around 2010. Erwin, can you mute? Yeah. Sorry. I started this project around 2019, latter part of 2019, and we've been doing this for the past 1 year. So if you look at the chart below, chart shown here, there's a significant increase of coverage of all schools that were mapped in OpenStreetMap. So 2020 quarter four, there's around 33,000 that was already in OSM. And if you look at the previous years, we've actually mapped more than 160%, 60%, more than 60% of what was created for the whole lifespan of the project. So ang laki ng increase. And at the same time, if you look at the yellow bars here, these are the nodes or points, schools that are originally points, and we're trying to decrease that also, convert it into polygon so that we have greater quality of data for the schools. Our target goal is around 39,000, and we're closer to that target this year. So here are some basic stats of the whole project. On the right side is a map showing the incremental increase of coverage for the last 1 year. So out of the more than 39,000 schools, 63% of them were already reviewed, but only 54% were mapped. When we say review, sometimes we cannot verify the school indeed are in the correct location. So some mapper would skip those schools, but they were already reviewed, and we have to go back to them later on. Out of the 81 provinces, we have around 26 that are already almost complete. So that means 90% of the schools that were identified are already mapped. And right now we have around 33,000 schools. That includes public and private schools. And 23,000 have the school with ref tag. Ref tag indicates that this data were added based on the DepEd database. Okay, I'll show you a couple of examples how you can use the data out of this project. and you can use using extracting data from OpenStreetMap. So an example of this is how you can actually calculate travel time to a school. So using the data from OSM, both the roads and the location of schools, you can estimate, for example, in Guimaras, if this is the location of the school, you can find how long a student will have to walk from their place towards the closest school. So this can be useful for prioritizing, for example, where do you locate schools, or which students should be, are students, walking more than what was, their capacity just going to the school. Another example here is these are the schools in Tawi-Tawi overlaid by storm surge hazard maps data from Project NOAA. So in most of the islands in Tawi-Tawi, a lot of the settlements are along the coast. And these coasts are vulnerable to storm surge hazards. So I believe most of the schools that we have right now in Tawi-Tawi is at risk. And as local government planners, I think and school officials, we should always consider this hazard to our students. Another use case is since we usually use schools as evacuation centers, HAT OSM Philippines is adding additional information in the school property. So, for example, how much capacity, if it's an evacuation center, how much people can be accommodated in this evacuation center? Does it have facilities like backup generator and things like that? So this is an ongoing project by HAT OSM to include disaster-related information in public facilities. All right, Erwin.
Hi, thanks, Mani. So, how was the last year look like? In the cells you see in this graph are the amount of schools added to OpenStreetMap at a daily basis using the OSMaPaaralan Maproulette project. As you can see, a lot of people had been contributing to the project. Um, More than 50 schools at least are those represented in red cells. And we can see that even on weekends, Sundays and Saturdays, we still have contributors adding to OpenStreetMap. We have regular contributors coming as far as Mexico. We have regular local contributors who like mapping their own neighborhoods, whatever that is, in Mindanao or parts of northern Luzon. So, what is the impact of what we've been doing to OpenStreetMap in terms of quality? One, it has improved, produced better geocoding results. That means if you were search for a place in OpenStreetMap, we're now getting a lot of results based on the OSMaPaaralan dataset. Second, improved coverage of places. As I told you earlier, we were also extrapolating place names from the DepEd database. So we've been adding barangays, purok, sitios, including subdivisions where they are available. We're also getting to add a lot of expanding our road network thanks to the Rapid project from Facebook. We actually recommend people to use Rapid instead of ID because we are leveraging the AI data available. While you're adding schools, you can also add roads. We're also proud to say that the quality of the school data set now in OpenStreetMap, at least in the Philippines, are much better when we started. Schools will have the school ground polygons included, plus the buildings, and often the surrounding areas are also improved. We've noticed a lot of new people adding additional data after the school information has been added. And then, of course, we want to highlight that because this is OpenStreetMap, where free and open geodata is available, The school dataset is available anytime to anyone who's interested in it. So what's next for us? We hope initially before we had this pandemic that we were going to complete the project this year. Of course, it didn't happen. So we'd like to see more volunteers helping us validate and add data through the for the OSMaPaaralan project. We'd also like to convince DepEd to release more recent datasets after 2016, including private schools if that is possible. Like Maning said earlier, there had been a lot of changes in some areas. Schools may have moved elsewhere, and we'd like to keep the school database in OSM updated as well. Perhaps we can also convince DepEd to help with local validation. And well, let's see how that goes. We also would like to encourage researchers to utilize the dataset. The nice thing about the OSMaPaaralan project is that it's producing a national dataset. And with over 21 provinces with 90% completion rate, I think this will provide a more accurate model when using trying to extrapolate more information out of the data from OSM. We're also wondering if the approach we did is a model we could follow for engaging government agencies. How is that? The official data that came from DepEd, was it likely to get improved after they've been released until it's utilized by other people, like contributors in OpenStreetMap? So in this case, we were able to verify or validate the school dataset that were official. And now that information is available in OSM, and we're pretty sure that the validated data, because of our contributors and volunteers, are much better than what we have now, than the official ones that comes from them. So if you're interested, here's the shortcut link to relevant pages we maintain about the project. So the tasking managers there. If you're just interested about basic numbers, there are various pages we have for regular statistics. It's also documented in OpenStreetMap because it's an OpenStreetMap project and we're required to do that or encouraged to do that. If you want to look at individual changes, because OpenStreetMap is always about making things transparent as possible, you can use the OSM changeset tool for looking at that, or review result maps from NIS1.org to see what's been happening in the past several 30 days. And you can also extract the data directly using Turbo Overpass. So that's it from me, Erwin, Manin.
Thank you, Erwin. That ends our presentation, and we're happy to answer questions. And hopefully, you can also contribute to the project.